Hi all, Cynthia here from MB Pretty Papers, back today with a page in my art journal. As I'm doing this one, I'm keeping in mind the prompt over on the Nina Rabina's art journal prompts and more page. I think that's it. It's a bit of a mouthful, that one. And this week's, or one of the week's, challenge was to reuse, repurpose and recycle. So I'm going to do a layout with that in mind, and as you can see I've started the page, so I figured that kind of to reuse the page, I'd already put some stuff on there, or to repurpose it, so kind of falls in that category. And then later on in the process I do some fussy cutting out of a magazine and I do a little bit of collage. So I repurpose or reuse the images in there. Going through doing some, so you started off, saw me put some acrylic paint down in the blue and green, which was what the colour was already on the page, so I just thought I'd keep going with that. And now I'm just trying to build up layers, so I'm adding more blue, more green, and just doing the like a mottled effect, and have a sponge here that I'm just dabbing on to give it a sort of a mottly effect in the background. And I cut out all the drying and in between, so you didn't have to watch me do all that. Just pulling out a stamp here. This is a Kaiser Craft stamp, and using some archival ink in black, and just putting some wood grain textures on the background. Still working on the background, building up the depth and the layers. And I have these two stencils, and I wasn't too sure which one I was going to use, but I will use this stencil here, and in the end I come back in and I do use the other stencil as well. Using some Distress Oxide ink. Wasn't over happy with the colour that I was getting there, so I switched out colours, and in real life it was the second colour that would show more, whereas the first colour wouldn't show out much. But on camera you could really see the first colour. So this is what I'm going to be cutting out. So I have this magazine, Daphine's Diary, and I'm going to cut this image out here and use the girl and the teacup. So I just showed you who the artist was. Her name is Maria Pace-Wynters. I think that's her name. And I think the page is gorgeous, so I'm just going to cut out the girl and the teacups, as I said, and use that as the reuse or repurpose part of the challenge. Coming back in with the other challenge, the other stencil, had the gold acrylic paint there, and it's a beautiful shimmery shiny gold. And I mix it with a little bit of modelling paste, and yeah, it takes all the gold and the shine out. So it's about here I stop and think, not what I was visualizing. Decided I will go ahead and use it, and if all else fails, once it dries, I'll put the stencil back over it and just put a thin layer of the gold on top. But you'll see towards the end I don't do that. I think the colours actually go quite well with the colours that are in the girl, so I just leave it as it is. pull out the matte medium here, matte media gel, and I'll use that to paste down the two images that I have. And I also go over the majority of the page, keeping in mind that I have used a little bit of Distress Oxide inks, which will reactivate if they get too much moisture on them. So you sort of go a little bit gently, a little bit gentler, I should say, and it doesn't smudge too bad. I want to be able to cover sort of the majority of the page, certainly up around the teacups and the image and around the edge of the page, and possibly in the middle, because I know I'll probably do some shading here as well. So I want to make sure that the page is non-porous, so it will handle my pit brush markers when I get to that stage. The girl is sitting at a table, so I need to continue the ground along there somehow. So I pull out the red Distress Oxide ink. Once again, there was initially some red in the original image, and I just add some there, and then I grab this stencil and just go with some Distress Oxide inks again to add a pattern on the tablecloth basically. You'll have to excuse my head. I think if you've been watching my previous videos, you know I was having troubles with my camera setup previously, and the last video I said I was going to go away and set up set up my DSLR to record, which I have done, and I am using that to record this video. But I had, you know, a few technical issues. It shows my head a fair bit, so I've got to get the angle right. It sort of started to sag on me a couple of times, so I had to cut out a little bit of footage because yeah, the camera just sort of dropped down a little bit and I didn't notice it, and all of a sudden I was off the page and all you could see was the floor behind me basically. So yeah, hopefully over the next video or so I'll get that all sorted out. Now I went away and drew a little mouse. Well, I attempted to draw a little mouse anyway. I think it's good enough for the purpose. I think you can tell that it's a mouse. So I glue him and put him down there, once again just using that same matte medium to glue him down, and I actually end up doing another two before the end of the layout as well. I draw another two and put them around the page in a couple of different spots. Coming in with the markers to add a little bit of details, so the black to add some details to the mouse, and then some white to add some details to the girl's hair, because when I trimmed out the page I cut all those off. Using the label maker to print out the quote that I'll go for this page, which just says, what adventures will we do today? What adventures will we have today? Something like that. You can read it there. And this is where I'm drawing the third mouse. Now, you didn't see me draw the other one. That's when the camera dropped down. So, but up on the top of the teacups there, you can just see a little mouse hanging down. So I've put one up there, and I'm just drawing the third one, and I'm going to cut that out and add it as well. And I add this one on top of the girl's hair. And once I put that down, I go around, do a little bit more shading, add some edges to the page, and I pretty much, that's about it. So just fussy cut this one out. It's not the best of drawing this one. I think the first one was the best, and then the second one was Okay, this one, yeah, this one's just. Obviously did my best first, but it will do. I think it gets the point. I think it sits in there quite nicely actually. Try a few different colours with the border. Initially tried the blue, which wasn't dark enough. Then I'm trying the vintage photo and I still feel that's not quite dark enough, so I come back in with the black soot and just add a smidgen of a border around the edge, just enough to frame the page. And off camera you don't get to see it. The camera stopped again. It only seems to want to record for 30 minutes, then it stops. So I've got to be aware of that. I might have to go and do a bit of investigation to see whether I can stop that. But off camera I add some white splatters just using some gesso mixed with water. Adding some last minute details here to the mice, just some highlights, some black whiskers and nose again, and a bit of eye. And here I'm making the white splatters up, and that comes to the end of the layout. So if you're stuck with me this far, thank you very much. Make sure you give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and I will catch you on the next video. Until then, have a good day, a good week, or a good month, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye.